plants. I've had a few questions about tomatoes, so I am going to share what we're doing this year, what we've done in previous years, what has worked and what hasn't. My friend Danny had a few questions, so I'm going to be mainly answering her questions. We're going to be pruning back and talking about the suckers, talking about just the leaves themselves. I know a lot of people do it all different ways, so there's no one golden standard for tomatoes. Some people might say there is, but depending on your soil, whether you're planting in containers, it depends on what you're doing and the climate you're in. There's too many variables for there to be just one way. So this plant had a lot of suckers early on, and I left them. In previous years, I have taken all the suckers off, and the suckers, when we're talking about the suckers, there are main leads, and right here is a main lead, and you can tell because it's bigger and it goes all the way to the top. And so then off the main leads, we get just the leaves, and this one I'll be cutting off. Because it's not a lead, it doesn't have tomatoes growing off of it, it doesn't have a sucker growing off of it. The sucker will grow between right here. So you can see that on this one. Here's the leaves, and there's the sucker in the middle. So this is basically a new lead. And with those, they're pretty neat because you can actually take them off right at the bottom here, stick them in a glass of water, and they'll grow new roots, and you have a whole new tomato plant. Now, it depends on if you're container gardening. I'd probably not keep all the suckers if I was container gardening, because it would need more nutrients than I could probably give the plant. So right now I am trying to get more airflow because there's a lot going on in this one. And for us, in our experience, no airflow equals disease. It's done pretty good this year. We haven't had any concerns. There was a little bit of leaf curl early on, but I do believe that's because it got so hot and no water, and once we caught up on watering, the leaf curl went away. So having enough water is really important because tomatoes need that nutrients to just stay healthy. They do not uptake nutrients without water, and tomatoes require quite a bit of nutrients and water. So you can see where I've already made a lot of cuts. Here. We do not want leaves touching the ground, and we've done pretty good at that. So for the sake of airflow, I'm going to cut, because these leaves here are crossing into all these leaves over here. So that might be hard to see. I'm going to cut right here. There it goes. And then I'm going to cut this one here. And so here's a tiny little sucker. Tiny little one. I'm not going to cut the sucker off. So in my experience, cutting the suckers makes less tomatoes because each lead will produce more and more tomatoes. Now, I probably will start cutting them off at some point when we get closer to harvesting. We want all the energy to go into the tomatoes. And so I tie them up on our fences. I didn't keep up with this one super well, so it's kind of all over the place. But we save our hay bale strings, I don't know what else to call them, and we'll tie them up with that, or we'll use the bread twist ties and use those. I don't go out and buy new stuff when we have plenty of stuff around the house. So I basically get rid of all the lower ones. They're not needed. And we just keep the top ones. I just keep the top few. The leaves are where I've noticed the most diseases on tomatoes. And because we plant tomatoes every year, our garden is more likely to carry them into the next year. Now, how we've done it in the past is where we take all the suckers off, and sometimes we make them into new plants, sometimes we don't, depending on how many more we want. But we would have just one main lead, so the very first one would be our lead, and then we would wrap it around and just let it keep going, and it becomes super tall, and these will still become super tall. It's still early in the year, early in the season, and they'll just keep going. But every so often there are flowers, and that's what becomes the tomatoes. And so when we cut off all the suckers, like these tomatoes, these flowers wouldn't be here, and these flowers wouldn't be here. It would just be the main lead. And it does grow a little faster if you don't have all of these extra suckers, but in my experience, it doesn't give you more tomatoes. The other hard thing about vertical gardening, just doing one stem all the way up, is that it takes a lot more care. With these tomatoes, I don't have to come out every day to check on them. I water them, and I make sure they are cared for, but it doesn't serve us well. It creates so much more work and less tomatoes. So there's a lot more airflow. We can actually see through it now. I do need to go on the other side of the fence and do some more. And we've been able to avoid disease so far. So my main concern is disease and enough watering. So these are my cherry tomatoes. I don't do anything with them, I'll be honest. I just let them go. I let them do their thing. They're mainly my garden snack and for salads. And they grow so fast. I don't keep up with taking the suckers off. I cannot keep up with the leaves. They are some of my favorites though. So low maintenance for cherry tomatoes. Just have to put something up for them to grow and keep them watered, and that's all I do for that. So these tomatoes I have kept well pruned, and they are doing amazing.